Hey there, Dr. Tom. I started us a little bit early to ensure that we're connected. You're on mute right now. We've got some people. We're actually live at the moment. I started us a little early, so we didn't have any electronic issues.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, 2020.
It's 6 digits.
Oh, bring it to me. Well, that's a nice picture. Who is that guy?
I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing since you're on screen and get us all set up so that everyone
Okay.
can see us properly. So it will be in speaker view for those people who are on Instagram. They'll be able to see your face. We got some folks on Zoom. We're connected on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, as well as Instagram.
Great, great. Okay, it's okay. Great. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and put the document in the chat and get that all set up for you as well.
Yeah, yes. And so as questions start coming in, we'll have that question document.
Okay. Yep. For those of you listening, feel free to start posting your questions about whatever we're talking about today. I think we're talking about adaptogens for your hearts and lungs. For those of you on Zoom, if you could put them in the Q&A, I'd really appreciate that. And everyone else, just put them in the comments and we'll get them to Dr. Tom. Oh, and here's our special guest.
All right, Dan, you're on mute.
How's that?
Better, much better. There you are. There you are. Hey, nice to see you.
Doing?
Hey, Justin.
How's it going?
Really well.
We're good there. And so we want to do gallery view for this puppy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, gallery view. There we go.
There we go. Got it going on.
All right.
Great. Dan, we'll get started in a couple of minutes. There are some people on already. We're on, Anne's got us on 5 different venues, I think it is.
Okay.
And Christina just wrote in greetings from Cartago. Hi, Christina. Thanks so much.
Hey, Christina. Dr. Tom, I want to remind you so that I don't forget, I have something really important to announce in this venue regarding the cardiotone in a recent study regarding viral infections, including COVID.
Excellent. All right. I'm making the note now.
Yeah, don't let me forget. We'll save it for last, whatever.
We will be sure to include that. That's great. And Christina says, greetings from Cartago. That's the town that I bought my car in, down here in Costa Rica.
That's cool.
And Christina, Dan knows that car. He's been in that Land Cruiser.
I've been in it.
Yeah, Dan.
Good running
Dan,
car.
yeah, it's a good jungle car. And
It's a
right
good
now,
jungle car.
right now it's the rainy season here. There's 2
Your
seasons.
yard looks different. Is this a different yard? Am I seeing a different yard or am I not looking at a different view of the yard?
It's a different view. This is from my office. And if we go this way, I don't know if I'm all.
Oh, no, don't worry. Don't mess it up.
Yeah.
I just don't remember that view. That's good.
Yeah, there's the casita over there.
Okay, there you go. Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Well,
Dr. Tom and Dan at 6 p.m. Central.
okay, here we go. Hello. It's 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. here in Costa Rica, 7 p.m. Eastern, midnight in Dublin, 1 a.m. Wednesday morning in Milan, London, Warsaw, most of Europe, 4:30 a.m. in India, Wednesday morning, 8 and 9 a.m. in Australia, and 11:30 a.m. in New Zealand, and it's Facebook Live. So hello, everyone. Tell us where you're coming in from. And if it's outside the US, what time is it there? And for those of you that are staying up late, thank you so much. We've got a really great session today. I'm always excited when I can be with Dan Moriarty. Dan is my friend and partner. I am the Chief Science Officer for Sunhorse Energy. These herbs have changed my life and my family's life. And we've talked about it a little bit before, but I'm going to just tell you the story that got me into all of this. I had met Dan from, Bill Haney says there's no sound, but I think, Bill, everyone else can hear. You might want to check your server and try again. If you still have a problem, let us know. So I met Dan, it was 2012 or 2011, 2012, and timeout, we have a guest. Gio, come here. Oh, come here. There we go. There he is. There's Dan. Wave, Dan.
Gio. Hey, Gio. Hey, Gio. How you doing?
And
Good, Gio.
for those of you that have been with us for a while on Facebook Live, you saw him when he could be in one hand with me. And as he's growing now, it just keeps growing and growing. And it's a miracle to see every day how this little being is developing and how his joking is coming and his processes of how he processes information. Is just a joy to have the time in my life to really watch him develop. He's just the best. And I'm very, very grateful. And for all of you out there who have seen Gio so many times, thank you so much for all of your nice words. Oh, he said, all right, Dad, that's enough. Okay. Okay.
He's looking great. He's growing bigger every time I see him.
He is. He really is. So I met Dan when Dan's been a formulator of herbal products for over 40 years. And when I met him, he had this product. It was a single product at the time. And he had come up with the name Ultimate Energy because it really seemed to help people with their energy, and especially athletes and their performance. And so I tried it and I was shocked at how it helped me. And I'm a pretty knowledgeable guy on how to bicycle. I've done many, many triathlons, and I had a route that I would follow. And I tried this Ultimate Energy product, and I did much better, jaw-dropping better. I didn't feel any different, but the end result was much improved. So it wasn't like I was jacked up like on 3 espressos or something. I felt the same. My heart rate was the same, but my performance was much higher. I got a call that it was time to go home to Michigan and disconnect our mother from life support. She had been in a coma for 8 days, and hospice said she wouldn't come out of the coma. And so there's no need, it's pointless to keep her alive. So I packed some clothes, a couple of suits, because I'd be there for a few weeks dealing with the estate, my mom's estate and all that. And I packed my Ultimate Energy with me because I hoped I'd be able to exercise a little bit while I was there. I got home at 2 a.m. to my sister's house. The flights were late. Everybody's asleep. I go into my mom's room, and she's in a hospital bed and hooked up to some monitoring equipment. She's in a fetal position, semi-fetal position, mouth open, eyes half open. And I gave her a kiss, and there was just nothing. And I said, "Hi, Mom, I'm here." There was nothing. And then I said, why not? Why not? So I gave her some of the Sunhorse Ultimate Energy. I tilted her head and squirted some in her mouth. And I set my alarm for 2 hours later. She might die during the night. And I gave her some more. My alarm went off at 7 because my sister and I had to go to the funeral home that morning to make arrangements. I gave her a 3rd serving, and then we left. Hospice comes at 8 o'clock every morning to sit with our mother, bathe her, and play Frank Sinatra music because she liked Frank Sinatra. My sister and I come home about 11:30 after meeting with the funeral director. And there's our mother in a wheelchair. Hi, Tom. My sister starts crying. I do what any good doctor does. Give her 2 ounces 3 times a day. And, you know, I have no idea what was going on. I kind of had a sense of what might have happened, but our mother lived 6 weeks, completely worn out. She had sepsis. She was completely worn out, but she was wheeled to the kitchen table for every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And she'd smile, and sometimes she'd say a few words, but we got 6 more weeks with my mother. I came back to Southern California and I looked up Dan, and Dan said, "Hey, Doc, how are you?" And I said, "Dan, I'm in." He said, in for what? In for what? And I told him what happened, and Dan's jaw dropped like my jaw had dropped. And I said, we're activating genes here. We're turning off genes of inflammation. We're activating genes for anti-inflammation. I don't know all the mechanisms that are happening yet, but I'm in. We've got something here. And that's when we started working together in 2012, 10 years ago now, 10 years. And we have seen hundreds and hundreds of testimonials come in of the most remarkable things that you just would not imagine. Macular degeneration, these old women that say, "I got my driver's license back because I can see," or "I can see the television again for the first time in years." Or these older guys who their energy's back and they're waking up with erections again, and it's been years. You know, just all of these different functional indicators that the body is like coming alive again. And Dan is a master formulator. His mother was an herbalist. His grandmother was an herbalist. So it's in the blood and in the genes. And I've never seen anything like these products ever. And I've been a nutritionist for over 40 years. So that's why I'm here. And that's why we're talking today. And that's why we've got the man himself, the formulator of these products. And we want to talk specifically about 2 products today. And so we will get into those, but first, let me just officially welcome Dan. It's great to have you here again.
It's wonderful, Tom. Thank you, and thank you everybody that has taken the time out of your days, wherever you are, to tune in. And I know it's always worthwhile to listen to Dr. Tom, and I really appreciate the chance to talk to you folks out there. I'm kind of a lab rat. I don't get out much. I don't. It's not an everyday thing for me to do this, so it's interesting. But Dr. Tom, his experience with his mother, it touches my. I don't care how many times I could have ever. You can't hear that and not realize what an impact that would have on, of course, Dr. Tom, but also on me. It's really why I do what I do. My mom, God bless her, Hungarian. Her family left Eastern Europe, during the Hitler days. They got out before they couldn't get out. They barely made it. Some of my family on my mom's side settled in Mexico, way down in Colima, Mexico. And the other part of the family kind of wound up in Michigan, of all places. But, any country was better than Germany, and Hungary and Eastern Europe. I mean, you just had to get out. You didn't really care where you went. So I had some family scattered around. A lot of my family didn't make it, of course, on my mom's side. My dad's Irish. It's just, you can't pick your parents, right? So my mom was an herbalist, and so was my grandmother. Even though I couldn't discuss this with my grandmother, who only spoke Hungarian and never learned English. But my mother, on the other hand, I spent a great deal of time with. And she, in her way, explained the way herbs work. And this is really the foundation to what I do. And it's very different than how most people would approach formulation. And so it is so different that I devoted my life to figuring out what and how do I replicate. As science, you have to be able to replicate an experiment. You can't just have a one-off experiment. It needs to have a replicable, provable result. And so, this is really what I do. And so herbs are obviously plants that grow on the earth. Okay, now I've listened to my mother, and she told me, look, if you're going to do this, my recommendation to you, Dan, is that you specialize in one class of herbs that you are going to know more than anybody else about, because that's going to be your number one thing. So she says, I'm not going to tell you which class of herbs it is. You're going to have to find that on your own, but you need to do that. You need to be the best or the only. And that's Hungarian for saying the best, because you can't be the only. I'm not the only formulator, but you have to be the best at something. And so that was her way of saying that. So it was kind of a big, if you knew my mom, you knew that this was a big order to fill. Like, to fill her little shoes with my big fat feet was not easy. And so I had to figure it out, but I also had to do it. I was a science major. I had to go through from the science perspective to do this. And basically, for everybody that doesn't know me or don't know me, the basis for everything I do is summed up in 3 words: global resonance formulation. Global resonance formulation is why what I do works. It's why what my mom did works. And there's science behind it. And I just recently had a talk with my patent attorney, who finally gave me the okay to discuss it. I had to turn down and have had to turn down speaking engagements at UCSD to the faculty. I've had to turn down speaking engagements at the Aspen Institute in Aspen, Colorado, because of the IP. And my attorney said, can't talk about that. We're not done. We haven't quantified this yet. And it took years to do. But anyway, he finally gave me the okay to move forward with this. And so, for the benefit of everybody, and including Dr. Tom, by the way, who has not heard what I'm about to say. And so I want all of you to understand this. It's a big moment for us, because it just happens that this was just a week ago that my attorney says, Dan, we got this. You did it. It's amazing. He says, now you can get it out there. IP, you're protected. And so, I have to listen to these guys. You pay an attorney, you should listen to my thing. So I have listened to him all these years. And Tom knows how frustratingly secretive I've been about this. Is that correct, Tom?
I actually remember the drive. I was driving, you were in the passenger seat. We were driving to Temecula, and you said, I woke up in the middle of the night and I came up with the idea of global resonance formulation, that explains what we're trying to do here. I remember
that's
the conversation.
Yeah, those are the words that explain it. But what is it? What is it? So we're going to talk about what it is today. I'm really excited about this.
And that's a really,
raise your hand if you know what that is. Nobody knows what that is.
That's a very important concept, a very important concept for people to understand, because anybody can read a study and see that ashwagandha is good for you and that ginseng is good for you. And then they'll take some ashwagandha and some ginseng and they put it in a capsule together and they sell it as adaptogenic herbs. But that's not Sunless.
It'll probably do something. It's not going to be bad for you. It would be somewhat beneficial. But let's talk about really bringing it home. Okay, our body, all of our bodies are amazingly. There's so much we don't know. The amount we do know compared to what we don't know is you can be nothing but humble when you look at our physiology. So let's talk about global resonance formulation. What is it? So what it is that what I do is I take herbs that are embodied in a formula. It could be a liquid formula, which most of ours are. It could be a dry formula, but basically it's a liquid formula in most of our cases. So what do? We take herbs from around the world, hence global, in the same class. So these herbs are in the same class. They're all tonic herbs, and they're in a subclass of tonic herbs called adaptogens. So I'm just doing this so people may not know what this means. So all adaptogens are tonics, but not all tonics are adaptogens. Now, I hope you can get that. And then in the actual subset of adaptogens, then you have primary and secondary adaptogens. Okay. And so a primary adaptogen affects the hypothalamic pituitary axis of our body. The secondary adaptogens support but do not directly affect the HPA axis. So there's a scientific definition. An adaptogen is non-toxic, works at the cellular level, And balances means it can be bidirectional. It can balance or bring up a sluggish system, or it can reduce and calm down an overactive system within the body. And it does this at the cellular level. So now that we know what the global part, meaning herbs from around the world, carefully chosen and in certain ratios, which is IP, I won't go into that. But the bottom line is these herbs are all in the same giant class of tonics, in the subclass of adaptogens, and in the minor subclass of primary and secondary adaptogens. Those are now combined, okay, in a way that creates a very, very incredible scientific phenomenon. So resonance, chemical resonance is what we're talking about here. So if you have two, say, molecules of a class of herbs coming from different parts of the world, they're bringing whatever is in this world out there, they're bringing this together in our lab, okay? They're contributing these active ingredients. And if you put them together, and this is what my mom was always struggling to get me to do, was put them in a way that you hit like a quantum increase of effect without increasing the dose. It's not dose dependent. It's more like an effect that you're looking for. So what happens from a scientific point of view is the molecules will either donate a proton, electron, or ion, or borrow a proton, electron, or ion, and it will become a hybrid structure. It's basically called a resonant hybrid. This is the technical term. So Sunhorse makes resonant hybrids out of these particular adaptogenic actives. And when they become a hybrid, resonant hybrid, they become more stable. This is one of the big things that you hit it. Now, Tom will tell you this, but I have stable formulas that will stay stable forever. No refrigeration. You can put them on the south wall in the heat. It can get hot, cold, whatever, terrible changes in temperature, whatever, for years, and it will not change. So they are very stable. And what that does and what it enables is it enables what we have to go through the body and pass through this crucible called our GI tract, where they don't disintegrate, which is one of the big drug problems in the world, is how do we get these drugs through the GI tract and into the cells? So, ladies and gentlemen, global resonance formulation takes these globally sourced herbs, combines them in a very specific way, which is our formula, and creates chemical resonant hybrids that are more stable than any other adaptogenic non-resonant formulated stuff, and it will go through your system and get to the cell and penetrate the cell and actually get to the internal workings of our cellular machinery. That is what we are, and that is what we do. So now that we got that out of the way.
That is, and for the healthcare practitioners watching tonight, they likely can follow this, what you've just described, Dan, and they're right with you. For the general public, it may be a little like, okay, so what's the difference? The difference is these formulas work like no other formulas. And we're going to talk about two of them tonight, specifically two of them. But before we do, there's a couple of questions that came in. The first one is from the Benson family in Iowa on YouTube. And they say, hello, we're joining you on YouTube tonight so we can stream this to the TV. Sending love to the Benson family in Iowa. And they've been following us here on Facebook Live for years. And thank you so much. My husband has been using Fog Cutter for a couple of weeks, and we can tell with an exclamation point. So that's great. Glad to hear it. Mary on Zoom says, and Dan, this is for you. I purchased 2 bottles of the Ultimate Energy and haven't noticed anything different. Is it just me? I'm halfway through the second bottle. How do we answer that?
I will tell you how to answer that. Quite simple. First of all, when we're really having a good day, like, we all have days. We have a better day, we have a bad day, we have whatever a good day is. Okay, so a good day, you don't feel hyper excited. You don't feel depressed. You're functional, you're productive, you can handle things, You talk to your wife, someone cuts you off in traffic, you're not upset. What is a good day? Well, a good day is a day where you're able to handle everything and have time left over for your loved ones and yourself and things that you need to do. That's a good day. And so when you take Ultimate Energy, which you just said, you're taking our formula that is a strict global residence formulation, adaptogenic formula. And what it's doing is it's making your cells and enabling your cells to become better cells. So each cell in your body is getting its own little dose of adaptogenic actives, meaning the active ingredients. And guess what? They are doing what they need to do with their cellular machinery. Now, remember, it works at the cellular level. Remember way back when I was discussing what the definition of an adaptogen is, working at the cellular level. Now, our tissues are made of cells and our organs are made of tissues. And so if it's working at the core level, it's basically fixing dysbiosis within the cells. If you don't feel anything right away, that's good. That's what I wish everybody had your problem. Because most people, they're burned out or they're hyperactive or there's something. And what adaptogens do as a class of herbs is they lower a normal stress response goes like this, up and down like this. Stress goes up and eventually comes down. With adaptogens, your stress response does this. So instead of going here, it goes here. And what that means is your body is not under this whipsaw of cortisol and all these stress hormones ripping through. You're gonna have stress, that's just life. But how much stress? Think of a violin, 4 strings, G, D, A, E. If you over tighten a violin, you will fold your violin up and it won't work because you just broke it. But you need to tune each string to G, D, A, and E. And then if you're a violinist, you can make music. So a certain amount of stress is necessary. Too much stress is harmful. So for the person that's not experiencing massive differences, that means that they're closer to becoming balanced people and having more good days. I wish that was the same or the case for everybody, because it would be just basically a prophylactic or a preventative instead of trying to fix something. So for all of us people out there that have things to fix, yes, that will help. It'll help fix these things. But let me tell you, if you're going to notice some people, and I mean, one person doesn't hear all the stuff we hear. Some people, they get an increased energy. Other people, they need to take a nap. They start yawning and they go to take a siesta and they're like, whoa, what's going on? I thought this stuff's called ultimate energy. Why am I taking a nap? It's the opposite problem. Their systems were too active, too much cortisol. Adaptogens intrinsically, they carry this intrinsic knowledge, you would call it knowledge, within itself to be able to balance this bidirectional effect in our body. So a person that's hyperactive and probably is going to have problems, maybe a stroke, maybe a heart attack, maybe hypertension, whatever it is they're going to have, it's going to bring it back down. And for a while, they may need to take a siesta. And what I tell them is, do not fight the feeling. Whatever you're feeling is what you should be feeling. The adaptogens are the most well-studied group of herbs on this planet. There are literally thousands of human studies done on adaptogenic herbs. They're literally amazing. And so if you take one of our products and you feel, I don't notice anything. Like, I've been taking my products for a long, long time, and I can't really say I notice anything anymore, except I notice that I don't get sick much. And I notice I don't go to the doctor much. And I notice that I can still run my 3.5 miles of hills in the same time that I did 15 years ago. And I'm 68 years old. And I just noticed that my wife got pregnant and I'm 68 years old. And that was kind of a big shock. And so now we're going to have a baby. And I don't think we were planning that. It just happened. And so the bottom line is, when I go to the doctor, when I do, they always go, what exactly do you do? And I'm like, I tell them, and they go, what's really weird, Dan, is that your markers are getting better and you're getting older. We're not used to seeing that. Especially with COVID, we're seeing everybody going down. I just want to know, like, what's your lifestyle? What do you do? Because they don't know. I have to go to a doctor, get a checkup, and I ask them. And so the bottom line is, you want to live your life with as many good days as you can without chronic problems. And
Right.
so, by God, I hope everybody's like that person that just keeps on keeping on and has as many good days as life allows.
Really
And that's
good.
what we're all about.
That's a great answer. Thanks, Dan. Here's another question along those lines. I'm from Facebook. Hi, everyone. Hugs from Canada. Thanks for this live. Which of those adaptogenic formulas should we use for autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis? I would love to buy and recover my life. Thank you so much. So I'm going to start the answer and then I'll pass it over to Dan. When you have an autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis, we now know clearly that your immune system has been overactive, fighting something for at least 14 years. 14 years with rheumatoid arthritis before you start having symptoms. So this mechanism of inflammation has been going on for 14 years or more. So what do I take for rheumatoid arthritis? That's not the question. The question is, how do I reduce the inflammation that manifested as rheumatoid arthritis? That's the million-dollar question. And for that, I'd recommend you pick up my book, The Autoimmune Fix. It won the National Book Award. It's just a fabulous book on where autoimmune diseases, and I talk a lot about rheumatoid, where they come from and what do you do about them. So I don't want you to think you can just live the same life that you're currently living with the food you eat, the environment you live in, the air you breathe, and wherever the triggers are. You have to identify where are the inflammatory triggers. I don't want you to think that you can keep living that life and just take our adaptogens and you're going to be fine. Now, that doesn't mean the adaptogens aren't going to help. Of course, they're going to help, but you have to identify where it's coming from. So please, two things. One, read my book. And if you don't want to read a book, go to my website, theDr.com, and download or just click on the link for Betrayal, the autoimmune disease solution they're not telling you. And that's the docuseries that we did that shows you where autoimmune diseases come from. And it's free to watch it. It's just fabulous. So one of the two, get the book or watch Betrayal or both. Now to Dan about which formula would you recommend with rheumatoid arthritis?
Oh, okay. So I don't know how old this person is, and I don't know any of the medications that they're currently taking or not taking. That's the first thing. And secondly, I have to say it, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot give actual recommendations as a doctor might give you without even knowing who I'm talking to. However, that being the case, what I would do, and this is what I would do, okay, if I had an autoimmune issue like that. First of all, just like Dr. Tom says, inflammation is not your friend. So what I would do is I would remove the causes, as many as I could, of inflammation from my life, of which diet is a big deal. So I would eat live food with real enzymes that haven't been cooked out, as good, healthy, organic as you can, and find whatever the best sources are, and try to stay away from processed food, try to stay away from glutinous food, meaning coming from barley or wheat or triticale, anything in that family, avoid it because that will spike your inflammation. And then I would make sure I stayed very hydrated. And since we are 98 to 99% water, if you count every molecule, it's probably like 99, but it's a lot of water. We're made of water. So water is a very big deal. Now, we'll go into a whole discussion on that, but make sure you're drinking very good water that's mineralized naturally if possible, and drink a lot of it. Like I just asked for some here a minute ago, because you should drink water almost all the time. And because inflammation, think of it as a fire. It's like a cellular fire, and your body is struggling to put out the fire. So if you had a fire in your house, wouldn't you grab some water and try to put it out? If it's not a grease fire, probably be appropriate. Okay, so that's one thing you need to make sure you stay hydrated. And the final thing is, which of our formulas would I take? And the answer to that is virtually any one of them, because they all have adaptogens in them. They are basically our formulas, our adaptogenic global resonance formulation can be looked about like this. If you were to look at our men's formula, it's a complete formula with a molecule that you would call the point of the spear. Okay, so we're putting that in the front. And how do we get there? We use these adaptogens to, like the handle on a spear. If you just have a spear point and you throw it at the wall, not too effective. But if you put a handle on that same spear and throw it at the wall, you'll put a hole right through the wall. That's the difference between a molecule without the adaptogens entrained in a resonant fashion. That's like a spear getting to the root of the cause of the problem. And so when you take Sunhorse adaptogenic formulas, you're taking global resonance formulation. Your body, believe it or not, knows what to do. Don't overthink it. Just pretend you're a natural person in a natural place, and just you are. You don't have to pretend. You're there. So now treat yourself as a natural person in a natural place and eat natural foods. Like you don't find a processed piece of food in a wrapper hanging on a tree. Why not? Well, because it's not natural. Why don't you find these things hanging around like gummy bears and Twinkies? They don't hang there because somebody made those things. And when you eat that stuff, if that's your diet, your body is saying, whoa, wait a minute here. Where's the good stuff? You know, it's okay to have a Twinkie. It's okay to have a cupcake. It's okay to have a piece of pie or some ice cream, you know, in moderation. But you have to eat the predominant amount of your food. It has to be good, healthy food without a lot of adulteration and not. My mom would always say, if it don't go bad, it ain't good. So if it doesn't rot,
Really good.
if it's like a banana that doesn't get overripe, don't eat it. It's not natural. So pretty much it's like that. Good home cooking, good food, and then adaptogen. Now your body knows what to do with that. Your body will lower the inflammation. Dr. Tom will explain it better than me, but you're going to bring that inflammation down. You're going to increase your cellular integrity. The adaptogens are going to work at every cell. It's going to put every cell in your body like in a gym, and it's going to work out. So you now have healthy cells, and healthy cells, hello, we're made of cells. Healthy cells equals healthy you. It's just that simple.
So the ultimate energy that my mother took is the point, or is the spear. The adaptogenic herbs, the way they're put together is the delivery system. And for men, we've added a few more herbs to enhance male function. And for women, the male formula is called Mojo 8.5. The female formula, that's ultimate energy plus a few extra herbs for women on the point of the spear, is called Thrivogen. So if you are a woman, you most likely will benefit more from ultimate energy or Thrivogen. They both will get the job done for you, as long as you're following these other lifestyle principles that I and Dan have mentioned. You've got to include those lifestyle principles.
Have to.
The next question, are there adaptogenic herbs for restoring the Th1, Th2 balance and for calming down the cytokine storm? And that's actually going to lead us into the one of the two products that we wanted to talk about tonight is lung support. So let's do that product first, Dan, lung support, because
okay.
When you put that formula together, we've had some really great feedback from people that had lung problems of different type. So let's talk about that.
Okay. This is what it looks like. I don't know how your cameras are picking that up, but it's called lung support. It's these are capsules, by the way, and it's an OO cap. So it holds approximately 500 milligrams of material, and the material, of course, that's what's in the cap. The cap is a natural gelatin cap. It won't give you any trouble there. But the first order of business is to talk about what we're trying to do with our lungs. Okay, so the lungs, obviously, they are gas exchange. We get oxygen that keeps us alive. Without oxygen, we're dead. We don't live very long. We live without water for a little while, water, food a little longer, but air, big deal. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, kaput, we're gone. So we got to keep our lungs working well. So let me explain. I'll use like a Native American observation to explain this. So the Native Americans lived in North America for possibly thousands of years before Columbus discovered them. They were here before they needed any discovering, but they got discovered. And one of the things that they did was they lived in nature, and they were very close to nature. So when bears, I'm talking a bear, when they wake up from hibernation, they have been sleeping and kind of in a torpor for 4 or 5 months in a little crowded little cave, cold, and living off their fat stores. And they're not running, they're not moving. Their lungs are just atrophied. Any muscle that you don't use a lot atrophies. And so these bears are just kind of sitting there, and they're big animals, so their lungs are just going. Normally they'd be, this little bear is just doing this for 5 months. So when it's a miracle that they can survive doing this, but they wake up and they come out of their den. The Native Americans, they used to see that. Here comes Mr. Bear out of 5 months of sleep, out of this, he's out. What does the bear do? He's hungry, heck yeah. He's thirsty, oh yeah. And he's kind of grumpy, probably, but what does Mr. Bear do? Mr. Bear goes and tumbles, walks, stumbles down to the nearest creek that it can find. And does it drink water? No. It roots around until it finds this particular plant, who's probably covered with patches of snow, pulls out the root and starts eating the root. And these, you got nothing to do. There's no TV. You're a Native American. You're watching. You're looking at Mr. Bear going, what is this bear doing? Well, you just observe. The bear eats these roots. And then the bear starts looking more like a bear. He's like standing up. He's moving around. Now it drinks some water. Now it's hungry. Now it's looking for food. Okay, the natives are going, I want to see what that bear ate, because they're naturally curious. They're people like us. They have a curious mind. They pull out the plant. They go, they break it. They're eating it. They start moving around. They start noticing something. They go, whoa, I feel better. I mean, I can run better. I can run faster. I can chase whatever they got to do. And so that plant that bear goes for, the very first thing that it does is what they call bear root and what we call OSHA. And OSHA means bear. Okay, so it's OSHA means bear in Native North American parlance. And so the OSHA is in this formula. Now, OSHA, by the way, is endangered. Okay, critically endangered. Now, some people say it isn't, some people say it isn't, but it is. When there's 8 billion people on the planet that need something, and it only grows in a very small little biosphere on very small little hillsides here and there, and people tend to oh, this stuff's worth money, so they over harvest it, and so guess what? It's endangered. And so Gaia, which is a big company, they are not selling OSHA anymore. We can't do it. They can't keep up with it, and it's depleting the natural stock. So I'm just letting you know. Fortunately for us, that there are people on this planet that know how to grow things in its natural environment. Like you can't grow OSHA that grows at 8,000 to 9,000 feet. You can't grow it on a little farm in Kansas down by the river, at 1,200 foot elevation. It just doesn't do the same thing. So it needs to be in the right environment for it to grow correctly. Fortunately for us, there are really good sources that they don't exist where we are because we've kind of lost it. America doesn't have the proper, ideas of keeping these treasures around so that we can all have it. So good thing for us that we can still get as much as we want, and we're not stopping selling it. And I've used OSHA for years, and I was very, 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 very particular about making, we get what we call a certificate of analysis on every single ingredient. which this is what it has in it. OSHA, first ingredient. Next ingredient, cordyceps sinensis. That's a really important ingredient for your lungs. Third ingredient, Macania huaco, okay, which I'll stop right there. I would be
I think Dan's
I
going
wouldn't
to
be
throw
here.
something here. Yeah.
I would be gone if it wasn't for that one. That one saved my life. That's why it's in the formula. It's a really, really difficult herb to source. And it saved my life when I could not breathe at all because I got bit by a very venomous scorpion when I was down in the jungles and I had a terrible anaphylactic reaction. And without that herb, which fortunately a little native guy knew about and I didn't, he gave it to me and within minutes I was able to breathe. I wouldn't have made it another 5 minutes. And so that one's very dear to me. So it's in there, Macania. And then along comes Polyrichis Bacillus. I know you're going to think it's funny, but it's also known as the herb of kings or black ant, which is one of the most powerful things you could possibly put in your body from the natural world. An ant, the specific kind of ant, has been noted by, and it lives in symbiosis with the ginseng plants. It's a particular type of ant. And the people that have been watching things for thousands of years in the native world, the natural world, they look at this ant and this ant can lift 200 times its weight off the ground and walk off with it, 200 times. And it has a neck. The head and the thorax is connected to a neck that is so small, it's like a thread. And the neck is able to support 200 times its weight as it runs off with it. And they're like, wow, it's small, but that's impressive, right? So they gather them all up and they hygienically process them and they fed them to the emperor, who happened to have a lot of pull. He was the only one in the time of the day back in in Asia. The emperor ruled the known world at that time, the only one that was allowed to have this stuff. And to this day, whether you like it or not, about 16 or 17% of all males on this planet are genetically linked to that emperor. Okay, they're all his kids. He had 1,000 different wives and he had umpteen kids, and it's called the herb of kings. It is as powerful as you can get. The highest natural source of naturally occurring bioavailable zinc and other elements, high protein, ridiculous what this black ant is. It's in there, and it's very difficult to source good black ant. You have to really, really know what you're doing. And then Glycyrrhiza urulensis, which is an amazing plant that also helps the lungs. It also helps the whole formula. And then at the bottom, last but not least, sunhorse adaptogens. And that means a whole entrainment of adaptogens. So this formula is designed to do what it says, support the lungs. And people that have COPD, asthma, all manner of ridiculous, like either genetic, congenital, or industrial issues with their lungs. They've dealt with silicosis. And I mean, I can go on and on and on. They've ingested like granular silicosis in their lungs. And the doctor says, you've got 5 years to live. Your lungs are just like a piece of concrete. You're not going to make it. It's kind of fatal, really. And, kind of like asbestos, only the whole lung is like black lung for miners, only these guys are like sandblasters. They're getting this stuff in their lung. They're walking around with a cannula in their nose, dragging an oxygen bottle, right? They start taking this stuff, and within 2 weeks, see you later, oxygen bottle, we don't need it anymore, okay? I mean, I have people every day, they buy so many months at a time that I just try to tell them, don't do it. Don't buy 6 months worth, please. It's hard to do that for everybody. So just buy what you need and use it. You don't need 6 months, but we'll have it for you. Okay, so it's very, very important formula. I'm going to be going when the COVID thing is, it's zero COVID, by the way, in China now still. It's just that policy's there. Very difficult to get to Everest, but I'm going to be going to the base camp of Everest, and I'm going to be giving it to the Sherpas, and they just love it because, frankly, the cordyceps is from their neighborhood. And so they'll recognize that one. And black ant, they know that one too. And licorice root, Glycyrrhiza urulensis, they know that one too. So there's a few they don't know, which I'll explain, but they're going to go and put it to the test, which means they're going to take it to 29,000 plus feet and they no oxygen, just do it. Okay, now me, little old me, I'm not an Everest guy. I don't want to go to do Everest, but I do go to high altitude and I do test it. And I will tell you right now, I just went in one day, went straight to 7,000 feet from sea level. I live at sea level, went to 7,000 feet. And the next day put a pack on and hiked to 11,000 feet straight up, just spent the night, woke up, put the pack on, 30 pounds, 11,000 feet. I'm 68 years old, up and back, no problem. The only other people I ran into going up there was a fire crew where everybody was carrying about 35 pounds. They were all young and fit and they were huffing and puffing. And I just blew right up there with them. And they were just blown away. They couldn't believe it. They're like, holy mackerel. They go, we're training. What do you do? And I said, well, I just got here yesterday. I said, unfortunately, I don't want to make you guys feel bad. I don't want to make you feel bad, but you really need some help, man. I said, because you're like gasping and you live here. I came from California, sea level, Encinitas, and I'm at 11,000 feet and I'm not training, I'm just having fun. And they were like, they're a head scratch, right? We have swimming teams that shave literally a second off their time. A second is like an eternity in a swimming pool. I mean, if you're a professional swimmer working out, to shave a second off your time takes 6 months of training. And they can shave a second off within a week of having this formula right here. So
for everyone out there, I want you to understand the sphere is the adaptogens of ultimate energy, and then Dan's added bear root and a few other ingredients in there to open up the lungs, to help the lungs function better, and the results are the testimonials that you're just hearing about now.
Yeah, you gotta try it to believe it. You just run. I mean, if you're like a healthy guy and you're not like on an oxygen bomb or something, and you're used to timing yourself, doing like, you know, me, I have a hill run. I do 3.5 miles of hills. I do it every day. I love it. I just run, you know, and up hills. I don't like flat ground. It's boring. I like running up and down hills. And let me tell you, I'm always in shape for that stuff. And so with this stuff, it's a breeze. I usually get to the top of the hills and I've run up there with like martial arts guys that are like super into training. And I'll say, well, why don't you guys train with me a little bit? I know I'm, you know, 35, 40 years older than you, but humor me. And so they come out, we run up the hill, and then we do 30 push-ups at the top of the hill. Then we run down and we run to the next hill. We do another 30 push-ups and we run down, we run to the top of the next hill. And we do another 30, and they're blown out, they're gassed, they can't do it. They're like, oh my God, you know, but of course I am used to that. So I'm a little ahead of them on it. But
well, this sounds like Jack LaLanne, Dan. This sounds like
it's
Jack.
A lot of fun. You're gonna blow the doors off all your friends. We were out in Flagstaff, and there's this guy who's a cancer survivor living right down the street from my wife's place. It's just the nicest guy. And he's just so happy to have beat cancer to where he can get on his bike again. And he was going to go on this big deal where he was going to go to Utah and with some of his friends and ride. And they were going to do as much. He was hoping to do like 80 miles. Was like, that's like going to be his big thing. He's a cancer survivor. So he built himself up to this point. And I said, well, listen, I support your concept. I want to give you this. I just gave him a bottle of lung support, which I had a few. Didn't think any more about it. The guy come back a week later, we were still there. He's like, I got to buy that stuff. I don't know what, I don't even know. I don't have no idea what this stuff is, but man, he told me, he goes, I had the best time and I was blowing all my friends away. And I finally told them what I was using and they were going to buy it too, because I just got to have some more. So, you know, he realized it was helping him. And Dr. Tom's a biker. I'm a runner. I'm a surfer. I do things that take cardiovascular. So this is designed to support your lungs. And we all need this support, whether we're doing athletics or not, doesn't really matter. So let's just keep our lungs going good. And that's what that's all about. Yeah.
We've got another question here. If I have other supplements, i.e. cortisol manager, that's the name of the supplement, that have some of these adaptogens in them, is it okay to take more adaptogens? I use Ultimate Energy in the morning. Can a person have too much in their system on a daily basis?
Well, okay. You know, I like it that people are becoming aware of adaptogens, and I like it that companies are putting them in their products. I mean, just so you know. And I feel very, very happy about that. I would say this, I stand behind my product. I've done the very best that I can do, and I've done this for a long time. And I would say, if it was me, I would try a little trick, just to test, I would take Sunhorse, take it for whatever you want to take it, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What I always used to do is the Sunhorse Challenge. And the Sunhorse Challenge is kind of simple. And I'll explain it to everybody here. It's a challenge, and you can do it. So in the privacy of your own home, just stand in front of a full-length mirror. Before you take any Sunhorse products, just stand in front of a full-length mirror and hold up your phone and take a picture of yourself. Just click. There you go. Full-length mirror, the light, the room, everything right there. Click. Now, take whatever product you're taking, okay, Sunhorse product, adaptogens are going to have it in there, and go through your life. And go through your life for the next month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. The 3 months is not a long time in our life. It took how many years to get us in the state we're in? 3 months is not a long time. So take Sunhorse for 30, 60, 90 days, and then stand in that same spot that you did before, in front of that full-length mirror, and take another picture. And then just look at the pictures. That's the Sunhorse Challenge, okay? That's what it is. And let me tell you, you're going to be pleasantly happy about that. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, there's so many ways to do things. There's all scientists, and I'm going to share one study. I'm a study guy, and I struggle with making things. I don't know. I just go off, make it too complicated. Tom will tell me. Maybe I do, but I'm sorry about that. But I will share one study with you, a very, very brief thing on a study that I have regarding the next product we're going to talk about, which is Cardiotone. So cardiovascular disease and lung issues, but if you take cardiovascular disease, it's the biggest killer worldwide, and it is the #1 killer in America. So what Sunhorse does, it's basically our concept. Dr. Tom and I work together. And so what we do is identify a problem, a target, you might say. And the target is the biggest killer in America, and that's cardiovascular disease. So then I take what I know how to do, and I do all the studies on every single ingredient, every way I can. And then I apply my 40 years experience with global residence formulation, and I build a formula to attack or to impact that target. And that is tested. We test all the ingredients, then we test the product. And then once we get the kind of, and I'm talking blind testing, once we get the kind of input that we know that it's working, eventually, if it all works out, and some do and some don't, but if it all works out, it will become a Sunhorse product, and you will see it on our website. You'll see it right there. And so that's what we do. So between the Cardiotone, and I'm just mentioning this to everybody, and the lung support, these two things should be in every single person's cabinet on their right. Like I get up and I go in to start the day, and I'm telling you, Mojo, the liquid, and these two things every day, start every day, just like that. And I mean, I hit the day running, and like I said, I'm not bragging, but I have a lot of younger people that work around me, and I just like to say I can keep up with them, and they have a hard time keeping up with me. And it's not because I'm anything special. It's just that I practice what I preach, and I take my own products, and then I use my body. Like, you've got to use your body too, guys. Just make sure that you're doing something. Like, as you get a little older, you need to exercise, you need to eat good food, you need to hydrate, do it.
So Dan, one of the things that you've just said to us is the Sunhorse Challenge, which we have talked about for a number of years for people, and that is give it a 2 to 3 month trial. Don't expect immediate results. You might get immediate results. Those people that do really needed the product to get balance because they were way out of balance. If within 2 to 3 days you're feeling like $1 million, not only does that mean it's helping you, but it means that you really needed the help a lot. But in general, if you give it a 2 to 3 month trial, You're investing in your future. Dan is 69. He's got a baby on the way. I'm 71. I've had a baby a year and a half ago, and we take Sunhorse products every day. And I'm not saying that if you do that, you're going to have babies again. That's not the point.
Stop right there.
You know, that's not the point. The point is that, knock on wood, our bodies are functioning more the way we hoped they would as we're aging. And I believe that's true. That's an opportunity for everyone. So Dan, you had mentioned that there's some information about cardiotone and the viral load that people are being exposed to. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because that is a tippy top, controversial, OMG, oh my God moment here. Okay, so, you know, when I'm talking to, I don't even know how many people, but I'm assuming that everybody knows about COVID. Everybody knows it's a virus, and everybody knows that it gets into our body through, you know, probably our mucous membranes, nose, mouth, eyes, possibly touch. You know, that's how it gets in. And then what does it do? This is the important thing. It's a virus, right? So it kind of evades the normal our normal, immune response. It just sort of gets past our first level response. It gets going kind of too far, and then our body finally notices it. And that's where the cytokine storm kicks in. But here's a big problem. The virus itself, that virus, they're spending millions of dollars developing antibodies to the spike proteins and the various proteins. And what happens is this stupid little virus is not stupid. It just mutates, which it does anyway because it's a virus. And then along comes a little bit different virus, right? And it becomes the new variant, right? And then, oh my God, we got to make another vaccine. And that costs billions of dollars, and they're making billions of dollars. And then guess what? A few months later, along comes another variant. And then, oh my God, we got to make another vaccine. Well, how many vaccines do you want to take? I mean, is that the way? Now, I'm not saying vaccines are bad. I'm not going to rain on anybody's parade here, but this is going to be a replicating process. This virus is going to keep mutating, and it's going to keep mutating. We're going to have to keep making new vaccines unless we get to the cause. And here we have it. So this is a study, PubMed, I've got on my phone so I can talk about it. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll read it to you. Nattokinase, which, by the way, is the ingredient, the first ingredient. Amazing. So not just any nattokinase, won't go into that. Nattokinase, it says it's an isolate from fermented soybeans. Okay, get a load of this. In this study, we examined whether this nattokinase impairs infection by viruses such as severe acute respiratory syndrome, also known as SARS-CoV-2, as well as bovine Hesperivirus, BHV1. Interestingly, our studies show that both the SARS-CoV-2 and the BHV1 treated with the nattokinase were fully inhibited infection to cells. We also found that the glycoprotein D of BHV1 was shown to be degraded significantly, and that a recombinant SARS-CoV-2 receptor binding domain, RBD, was proteolytically degraded, okay, dissolved. So think about it, folks. You're dissolving the virus. It's not going to get immune to that. It's like dropping something in hydrochloric acid. Does it ever get immune to that? It's gone, okay? But this is dissolving the virus. So let's just, I'm not going to read the whole study, it's many pages, but I'm going to get to the bottom of this thing here. Our findings, final thing, provide the first evidence that nattokinase, which is a protease, it says, and contains a protease that inhibits viral infection through the proteolysis of the viral proteins themselves. So we're talking dissolving the virus. That is what I wanted to share with you. That is what this does. Hello?
That's remarkable.
Dr. Tom has his own story on this that's just incredible. But I don't think anything can top dissolving the COVID virus in a study that's a scientific study. Now, listen, I don't want a bunch of calls from God knows who, because I'm not saying that my product has been shown to do that. What I'm saying is that the ingredient in the product that I use in a format that has been superior to the product by itself, that ingredient is what is shown to do that. That's what the study's about. So that study comes much later than my development of this product. This product has been on the market already, and it has sold off the shelf through this whole COVID thing. People are using it, and there's people that have been walloped, and we know personal people. I mean, Dr. Tom knows Tom. I mean, the other Tom, who was really bad off. And I mean, these guys are in the hospital, and they come out after a day. It like dissolves the freaking virus, which frankly, I think whenever you can get a mechanical thing that works, you're much better off than some super complicated thing that works for a while and then the virus mutates. So if we can physically dissolve the little bugger, we're better off. And that's what this study has shown. And so it's pretty impressive. I'm not saying that we're the end of the line. There's many scientists working on this problem from all over the world, but you have to share information. You have to be involved in groups. We're involved in groups. You know, Sunless is involved in research groups that share very, very generously with us information like I just shared with you. And so what is next? What's next is to try it. You have to get it into your body. And believe me, you know, oh, how much did they take? Oh yeah, you need to know that. Let's see. I have to rip through that here in a minute.
Carol has a question. Which product are you referring to that dissolves the virus? And Carol, we're talking about the Cardiotone, and we're not saying it dissolves the virus. We're saying that an ingredient in there, Nattokinase, has been shown and published by PubMed, which is Public Medical Information, the National Library of Medicine. And they published the study that said Nattokinase dissolves the protein, the spike protein of the virus. And our product contains Nattokinase. It's the #1 ingredient in there.
Exactly. And you know, we have photos of dark field microscopy, which I could pull up on the phone. I wouldn't show it, but I could show it, of blood from yours truly here, who had rouleau formation, which is platelet aggregation. And this was not a good thing. It's like all your blood cells sticking together. So what happens when the virus COVID has been known to cause a kind of a stickiness? Now, we're not saying this is Tom's condition, but what happens is a similar cause of action is that the virus, like when it attaches to the receptors on the red blood cells can't make more virus. So people say, oh, don't worry about that. Oh yeah, you got to worry about that because the virus still attaches to the CD147 receptor. And when it attaches to the red blood cell, now the immune system attacks the red blood cell because there's a little virus stuck to it. Even though it can't make more viruses from a red blood cell because it lacks the internal machinery to make more viruses, but it's still there. And so the immune system attacks it. And what is happening then is that it becomes a sticky mess and it sticks together. So all your red blood cells look like a stack of tires standing up. They're not floating around where they can attach to oxygen. They stick together like the top of this stacking up. So there's not a lot of surface area for the oxygen to do a gas exchange in our lungs. And so this happens throughout our body. And the brain, which has very small capillaries, only large enough for one red blood cell at a time to go through, they start hitting these sticky cells of 8, 10, 12 cells can't get through the capillaries of our brain. So we start having lack of brain function, hence the long COVID brain problems. This is what it's from. Don't let anybody kid you. This blood problem is a huge problem. Okay, this product has been shown through the last 2 years of COVID infection to really help people with this platelet aggregation stickiness. And as if that isn't enough, and I thought that was plenty, now they're saying that the ingredients in this, which are the highest quality, highest levels that you can attain, this is like the most packed level of nattokinase you can get is in here. This is dissolving the actual virus. Oh my God, I was freaking out when I read that study. And that was sent to me, and there's like, Dan, keep it up. This is working, and this is why it's working. And so they figured it out. And so I'm really excited to be able to tell Dr. Tom and you guys simultaneously. I mean, this is why I live and do what I do. I love it.
So I'm going to share my personal experience with Cardiotone that Dan started to allude to. It was 5 years ago. Marzi and I were at Swiss Mountain Clinic. Some of you have heard me talk about Swiss Mountain Clinic in the past. I think it's the most fabulous health center in the world. And it was my first day there in this trip. And one of the things they did was live cell analysis. Live cell analysis is where they poke your finger, take a drop of blood, put it on a slide, put it on a microscope, and then focus in on it, and it comes up on a TV screen. They hook it up to look at it so that the person can see it on a TV screen. And when she put my drop of blood on the screen, it came up with this rouleau formation, which is poker chips. It looks like a stack of poker chips, and it's your red blood cells all sticking together. This is what forms clots. Stroke. Oh, Dan's got the picture. That's my blood when I got to Swiss Mountain Clinic the first day after flying probably 15,000 miles in the last month doing lectures. That was my blood. And I said, no, that's somebody else's. No, doctor, that's yours. We just put it on there. And I did an OMG. And I said, okay, well, thank you. I'm glad I'm here for the week. But I happened to have Cardiotone. It was still in the research stages. Dan and I and a couple of others tried these things before we put them out on the market for everyone. And I had it in my suitcase. So I went back to the room and I took a couple of Cardiotone. The next morning, I took 2 twice that day, 2 in the morning and 2 at night. The next morning, I went back and said, can we do my blood again? They said, oh, it won't be any different. It's not possible. This is my blood the next morning, that it's so much better. It's still a little sticky, but in 24 hours, the Cardiotone did this.
Sticky.
Yep. It was so much better. And look at the first time again. That's what it was the first time. That stuff forms clots. That's strokes. That's where a stroke comes from, when you have a clot stroke or a heart attack. Unbelievable the difference. And when I saw that, I knew right away.
One day.
In 24 hours. In 24 hours.
That's why people have been telling me when they've had this COVID symptom where they're just struggling. I mean, they're really struggling, and doctors are doing everything they can do. And then all of a sudden, somehow they're fortunate enough to know somebody or hear about it and get the Cardiotone, and within a day or 2, they just walk out of the hospital. They're released. Just that simple. And we knew, Dr. Tom and I knew, and we've always known ever since that particular situation, but we've known, and all kinds of people have been telling us, this helps unbelievably, and it really does. But we did not know that it dissolved the virus.
Right. I did not know that.
Did not know that.
That's
I did not know.
Information. Fabulous. Dan, we're over limit. We're over the
I'm
time.
sorry.
I know. So for everyone that's here, the links are here for you on the side for Cardiotone, for lung support, for ultimate energy. We recommend you give these products a try. I think you'll be really happy you did. But now I hope you understand a little more of the difference between any company out there that's putting a little bit of this adaptogen, a little bit of that adaptogen in a capsule, and what global resonance formulation is. It's a completely different ballgame. It's apples and oranges different. So Dan, thanks very much once again for being here tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Tom, and thank you, everybody. And I really enjoyed myself. I thought this was a good thing. I appreciate being able to talk to your people. And Dr. Tom, I have to say, working with Dr. Tom has been amazing. And I mean, I got to say this because big companies, they move slow. It's like an elephant. They see something, they like, let's go this direction. Well, we got to talk to the board. We got to move in this direction. And it finally, that happens, but a company that's nimble and responsive to their people and light on their feet and can identify a problem and take the cutting, bleeding edge results and studies together and supply it to a formulator like myself with no constraints. Dr. Tom never says, Dan, I want you to make this and it can only cost $21, because you know what? That's impossible. If it's not made out of something, it's not going to do something. So nobody tells me that we can't use the best. We use the best stuff we can get, straight up, and we make it work. So folks, please listen to Dr. Tom, and if he ever invites me on again, I'll be happy to be here.
Yeah, well, that will happen sooner than later. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a good week. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.